We welcome on Cecil Hurt, the sports editor and columnist for the Tuscaloosa News. Cecil, also a fan of the Drive-By Truckers. Where does the Dirty South, that album, rate for you, Cecil, in the Drive-By Truckers catalog?
It's pretty strong. That it's probably, if you had to characterize one as the one that has the most Jason Isbell influence on it, that would probably be the one. Great songwriting from him and from Hood and Cooley. So it's a strong entry. Southern rock opera is always going to be the top one for me. That's just the way that kind of goes. But Dirty South, as y'all just played Carl Perkins' Cadillac. Boys from Alabama, I'm sure you're going to go there today at some point if you hadn't already.
I would if they had an edited version of Boys from Alabama.
That's right. We're family programming.
Buford Stick would definitely make that cut for me. Cottonseed too. I mean that triumvirate about the state line gang in Buford. I mean that's as good of a three-strong stretch as you'll ever find.
Yeah, and then Day John Henry Died is a great song.
Yeah. That was the one. Dirty South is what established the Drive-By Truckers with Isbell, Cooley, and Hood as a big-time triple threat, right?
Absolutely. Just three of the really great songwriters working in American music today, all on one album.
Yeah, you touched on it earlier. If you want to catch it with the stronger Isbell influence coming in, that's the LP for you, the Dirty South. Hey, Cecil, we were both there Saturday, and I guess in a lot of ways we probably felt like we had seen this movie before, but I guess in many other ways it was different too, because in January there was this building sort of wave of support for Tua Tagovailoa to get his shot, and it happened, and we know what happened in that game back in January. This time around, when Tua goes out, I don't think there was that same sort of anticipation for Jalen Hurts to come into the game, but it happened. The guy played lights out, led Alabama back to what seemed at the time improbable victory. I know you wrote about it. I know you talked about it, but just how it was similar, I guess, in some ways, but yet different.
It was different, obviously, and one thing I will say that I sense, and I think this was based on the way that Jalen had played as a backup over the course of the year. I think that when he came in, the assumption was if he's okay, if the ankle's okay, that he's his ankle on ankle weekend, that things will be fine. That things will be. I'm not going to say anybody say, oh, they'll definitely come back and win the game, but you felt like Jalen could get the job done, and that was based on, I think, as much this year, the progress that he had shown and the support that he'd gotten from the fans and so forth. There wasn't. I didn't sense a lot of people say, "Oh, well, that's it. It's over. The backup quarterback's in." And Alabama's confident. They'd have been confident if Mack had come in. I really believe that. But Jalen had been in that scenario before. He's won an SEC championship before. And so it's a great luxury to have, and then for him to come out and respond.
Are we not giving the Alabama defense enough credit for how that thing went down? Obviously, Jake Fromm was lights out, and Jim Chaney deserves a lot of credit for a great plan. And the balance that Georgia was able to present to Alabama was unlike anything really the Crimson Tide had seen in the regular season. But the play of the defense over the last final quarter and a half or so, is it
stops?
Yeah.
Six straight stops after the missed field goal. Missed field goals a stop too, but they certainly drove down there. But kept Georgia at 28. Didn't let it get to 35 or 42. So I made sure to mention that even in writing about Jalen. Don't sell what the defense was able to do. Don't sell it short, and especially because a good bit of it appeared to be halftime adjustments. Showed some confusion, I thought, in the first half. Georgia created some mismatches. There were some guys out of position. There was, a couple of plays were out, which you rarely see, of Alabama not being able to get set. And not in the second half. They got that cleaned up, and that didn't happen in the second half.
Tosh Lapoy in his first year as the defensive coordinator, and you talk about halftime adjustments, and you need to give Tosh some credit for that. That being said, I got the sense, not just Saturday, but watching sort of that brain trust work throughout the season, you think Nick Saban may be more involved? And he's always been involved. He's a defensive guy. I mean, he's one of the best to ever coach on that side of the ball. But with the transition, going from a Jeremy Pruitt to a first-year defensive coordinator, all the turnover that you had on the defensive side of the ball in general, do you think this was as hands-on maybe as Nick's been with the defense in a few years at least?
Probably so. I think certainly as long as Kirby was there, and Jeremy too, they were more in the traditional coordinator role. That's not to say that Tosh is not. I think Tosh has done a good job, but I think Nick's been involved. I think Pete Golding has been involved. So it's maybe been a little bit more by committee than it was with Kirby or with Jeremy.
And that shouldn't come as a surprise again,
no,
given
those are guys who've been with Nick for years, knew what, had learned on the job, and were able to carry that over. Tosh is certainly been with Nick for a few years now, but first stint as a coordinator. So you would expect him to do that, and that's why you go hire a Pete Golding to come in and make the contributions that he made.
Absolutely. Cecil, let's talk about Tua on a couple of different fronts. The ankle injury, we've talked about it the last couple of days, obviously. The sort of anticipated time frame involving this situation, the comparisons made to what Jalen went through with his. What do you put on it in terms of an expectation, knowing that he's dealing with this type of situation?
Yeah, everybody heals differently. Everybody has a different tolerance for pain, and doesn't mean that they don't have high tolerance. I'm not saying the Tua or Jalen or anybody else isn't tough, because they wouldn't be playing college football if they weren't tough. So you just have to see. We don't know yet exactly what the doctors found. We don't know exactly what the procedure was. Everybody says, "Oh, it's the same, but everybody's different." And people want to compare. They want to say, "Well, Cam Robinson played in 2 weeks." Well, what Cam's asked to do is a little different than what Jalen or Tua are asked to do. I will say, if the game was December the 15th, you wouldn't think he could get back. But 28 days, 4 full weeks, that should be enough time for what they think this injury requires. So I think we'll see Tua on Thursday. How much he'll talk about it, how much Nick Saban will talk about it at the awards presentation in Atlanta, I don't know. But we'll at least get some news on that. Ben Jones will be in New York Sunday. So we'll get to see how Tua's getting around in various environments. He may be on the scooter in Atlanta for all I know. Doctors may want him to keep it up, elevated. So they have to feel like 4 weeks is enough. But and I know, Travis, and people who asked me this yesterday, what we're going to get into about 2 weeks from now will be people asking Nick Saban, and Nick Saban saying, "Well, why don't I just tell Lincoln Riley, and he can tell?" We're going to get some of that. Why should I tell you who the quarterback's going to be?
Yeah, we're going to get some you peoples. And
why should I tell Oklahoma who they need to prepare for? Let them prepare for both of them.
Yeah, if Nick had his way, there'd be no public appearances at all this week, probably for the awards deals. But that's going to go on regardless.
We'll get that full team day in Miami, and that's not always Nick's favorite day.
I don't think so either. Everybody's available at that team day. Oof.
Assistant coaches, it's great
everybody.
for us.
Yeah, Scott Cochran.
It's our Christmas a couple of days later, but I don't know that it's Nick. I'll put it that way.
No, I don't think it is at all. Tua's Heisman. You talked about going to New York, obviously as a finalist for the upcoming weekend. What do you think there as far as how Saturday may have impacted his chances of becoming Alabama's third Heisman Trophy winner?
Yeah, I think it'll be close. I'll be interested to see how close. I still think it could go either way, but it certainly had an impact. And credit, I'm taking nothing away. I'm not going to turn this into an election year. Our man is great and their man is terrible, or their candidate is terrible, male, female, and have it mudslinging. Kyler Murray had a great year. Dwayne Haskins had a great year and closed the year strong. And Tua had a great year. But you do need to evaluate on the year, not on the weekend. That's the one thing I would say. One guy, I can't say who I voted for as a Heisman voter, but to me, one guy's been the best all year long. Whether he had the best final weekend, he probably didn't, but that's one weekend out of the year. Championships are important, but so are getting the championships and the year that you've had leading up to that. So we'll see. I think it'll be close. I'll be watching. I'll put it that way. Some of you don't have to watch.
I think we all will. In sticking with the individual honors award season that we're on the doorstep of here, you wrote about today Nick Saban and how he's just not a part of these Coach of the Year type of situations, it seems like, in most seasons, which is kind of incredible considering that this last 10, 11 years that Alabama has had under Nick Saban has not only produced a number of championships, it's also helped populate the coaching ranks with his disciples. He's kind of been a factory in and of himself to the coaching ranks, but just on merit alone, the lack of honors that Nick Saban has received here in these last 10, 11 years. I know you had some feelings about that earlier today.
Yeah, it's fascinating. It's just, and it's certainly for instance, Mark Stoops was the AP SEC Coach of the Year, and he had a great year in Lexington. They don't go 9-3 every year, get to a New Year's Day bowl. So it's not about, this apple is better than this orange. Nick is just operating on a different plane now. I don't even know how you recognize what he's done. I wrote it because the Coach of the Year and the awards are going to go past us here pretty quickly, and he's not going to get much mention. He's not going to get much attention for a year in which they set an SEC record for margin of victory, I think, during the course of the year, or by, I guess, once you count the championship game, that might have been 96 Florida, but dominated the entire season. The one time they faced adversity, came back and won a championship game in a hostile environment, not a road environment, but a hostile environment in the Georgia Dome, with a lot of coaching done and a lot of coaching decisions that Nick Saban had to make, and having a quarterback ready to go. That's coaching, and so he's not going to get much recognition for that. And his career will be recognized as the greatest of all time. In that pantheon, like I wrote, they'll build a new wing for him at the College Hall of Fame. But what do you say about this season? Nick Saban has not won the Bear Bryant Award at Alabama at all. He won the AP Coach of the Year in 2008 when they had turned it around from 7-6 the year before and went undefeated until the championship game, and then but he hasn't won a single AP Coach of the Year while winning 5 national championships and in contention for a 6th. Not one of those years did he win it.
And let's call these what they are, really. I mean, they're underdog awards, they're turnaround awards. I mean, that's essentially what the criteria has become, right?
Yeah, since Nick Saban's won it, Gary Patterson's won it twice. First of all, Gary Patterson's an outstanding coach. Second of all, he's won it because people don't think you ought to win at TCU.
Right.
The point's not much different, frankly, to the gentleman who announced his retirement today, Urban Meyer. He doesn't win a lot of those kind of awards either. But I think Nick, at this point, and certainly in this season, even a level above Urban Meyer. So what do you do? How do you recognize that? Is he beyond? As I said, is he beyond Coach of the Year?
He's coached himself out of it.
Is there something else out there? Has he coached himself out of contention?
I think that's exactly what's happened. Hey, before we let you go, Cecil, speaking of coaching and disciples, should have asked you about this earlier, but the fake punt call by Kirby Smart on Saturday, you've seen, years, decades of football at this level, especially. Where does that one rank for you?
Baffling. It was baffling.
What was the upside to that call?
First of all, when you get into the good call, bad call debate, you can always say, well, if it had worked, it's a great call. That's true of every call in the history of football. But there were some reasons, aside from the execution, aside from what Kirby complained about, that the snapper, let's all blame the snapper.
Threw the long snapper under the bus, yeah.
Didn't get it off quick enough.
Kid's probably not even on scholarship.
It's not on me. It's on this walk-on from Alpharetta who didn't snap it quickly. But here's what intrigued me. And Jalen played great, deserved to be the MVP. But if I'm a coach on that other sideline like Kirby, and I know Jalen Hurts, I've played against Jalen Hurts, I've game planned for Jalen Hurts, I would rather make Jalen in a clock situation. I would rather make Jalen go 80 or 85 yards. They've got a good punter. Than 50. I just would. He's not. Jalen is not Tua. I'm not saying better or worse. But Tua can lightning strike one out for 50 or 60 yards, and that's not. Jalen can do it, and he's got receivers who can turn something short into that. But you're going to be keeping all that in front of you defensively in a 2-minute drill or a 3-minute drill, which it would have been. You got to make him go 90 instead of making him go 50. That's the first thing I thought of. Not saying he couldn't have done it. Not saying he couldn't have gotten them down there and Joseph Bulovas knocked in a game-winning field goal. But you can't let him start almost on the fringe of field goal range with what he's capable of doing, turning a sack into a 5-yard gain or completing a short pass and letting him have all that without any clock pressure. I just was really surprised philosophically that you don't make him go 90. That's what I'd do.
Yeah, and that reasoning, I thought, made kind of Alabama's decision to go after the punter at the end of the first half a little bit of a head scratcher, as well. Although, again, you block it, you look like a genius, but then you run into the punter and you lose an opportunity there late in the first half. So those things can certainly go both ways. Hey, Cecil, as always, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but we're talking about the last 3 minutes of the game now.
You're right. Absolutely. A whole different dynamic, no doubt about it.
Let's say the best case scenario, you convert it, you still have to score. It's not a game over situation. So I was surprised. But they pay Kirby the big bucks, and Kirby's going to be successful. But he'll have to talk about that one a few years down the road when he doesn't want to talk about it.
Absolutely. Hey, Cecil, appreciate you joining us here on the show. As always, my friend, we'll do it again real soon.
Thanks, Travis.